started here. City manager ready?
Yes, sir.
Finance director? City clerk?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Everett?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mervin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Five glasses here.
I call this City Commission of the City of Pahokee Budget Workshop of Monday, August the 13th, 2018 at 6:05 to order. May we please stand for the invocation given by our own City Commissioner, Benny Everett III, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we pray? Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this purpose in which we are assembled and for the purpose of transacting the city's business. We pray for a spirit of unity, oneness, and an atmosphere of open dialogue and discussion to position our city to be that community and city of choice. And we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mary Babb,
Present.
Commissioner Everett,
Here.
Commissioner Hill, Vice Mayor Mervin,
Yes.
Present.
Commissioner Walker, City Manager,
Here.
City Attorney, Sergeant at Arms, Interim Clerk, here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, staff, and thank each of you all for being here this afternoon to participate in our budget workshop, the final budget workshop of the year. The purpose of this meeting is to being held is to discuss the proposed fiscal budget 2018 to 2019. At this time, I'll turn this portion over to our city manager to lead us in the discussion of our budget, proposed budget.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Commissioner, thanks for coming out tonight. This is our last budget workshop for the for preparation for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. As previously stated in our last workshop, we've done a good job this year of over the stewards' money, and hopefully that this budget that we're presenting to the public for 2018-2019 represents the standard that we've set here in the city of Pahokee as far as services. Tonight we're going to wrap this up with the last three departments. We went back and we also added an additional piece of information. We'll discuss that once we get through the departments, and that is not a definition, but a cost analysis of a cost of living increase that we discussed, and or either a bonus at the end of the year. So we'll wait to the end, get through these three departments, and then we'll have a discussion about that, if that pleases the mayor and commission. So this is a continuation of what we've already approved or decided upon for 2018-2019. Page 24 is Public Works. You have roads and streets, and this is Public Works Department. If you notate the change there at salaries of 418, and then again a change at life and health and general liability and auto property insurance. And I'll take any additional questions that you have on this particular department at this time. We are not fully at full FTE there, full-time employees. We have a couple of positions that we still need to fill, but we do operate a 3 crews there that sufficiently are able to give us the services that we need. We are hiring currently for, well, we just hired 2 additional staff persons in this department, particularly. But there is a slight decrease in salary. That's mostly because of just the changes in either we hire a full-time or part-time position. And so that's what that represents. In addition to that, we do take on from the county, not the county, but from the employment agency staff that they pay temporarily for about 3 months just to try them out in public works. And then if it works out and we have the funding, then we hire them full time. So sometimes our salaries fluctuate, and they actually help us out significantly when those internships occur in that manner. We've actually hired a couple of guys under our payroll after they've served on their career source 3-month payment, sometimes 120-day payment cycle from them specifically.
So currently, how many employees we have in this department?
Sixteen funded positions. But if I'm not mistaken, I think we have 11 full-time staff in there. Not full-time, but 11 staff.
I'm a little lost when you're saying
You say
that.
16 positions, but 11 are in that department. Actually, 12, because we just hired a guy this week.
I don't understand it at all.
You have
Somebody
16
help.
positions in the
Funded
department.
positions.
16 funded positions.
Yes, but you
currently
have
11.
actual, yes.
So we're short right now.
No, I wouldn't say short. Not short as far as in manpower, it's just those positions were never filled.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean it's short as far as
But
manpower.
it
is concerned.
means we can hire.
Yes, yes.
an
Yeah, yeah,
additional
yeah.
five.
Yeah,
Okay. Because to me, that's one department. I mean, you run the city day to day, but that's one department. If we ever needed additional help in, is that department.
I'm-
Even at 16, to be honest, a city our size, I think that's, to me, is understaffed with the magnitude of trash and things we have to do to maintain. We don't really properly, to be honest, one of our shortcomings, even like sidewalks, drags drove through the tracks. We don't have a manicured city, and that's not cause of illegal dumping and other things. That's part of it, but I'm just saying the maintenance of it could be a lot better. And I think it's we're shorting ourselves if we don't quickly, as soon as we can, hire those individuals. Also,
yeah, I had some different ideas about how to fill some of the gaps there as far as manpower is concerned. And because we have some room or space there in the budget to do that, I pitched that idea around to the director and even the finance director. And so we're sort of in the infancy moment of trying to decide whether we want to do a contractual services for some of the larger biweekly projects, like all of the parks, some of the general areas, to make up for some of that shortfall, or fill out those additional positions and pay, a little higher cost for healthcare and et cetera, if you do a contractual service for landscaping in those large general areas, you probably save yourself. So we haven't made that decision yet, but we are going to fill these out, be it a contract service of 4 guys on a crew, or, we'll hire some additionals to fill the gap.
in the past, we have discussed it. I thought we had some type of agreement already in place when we get behind, especially like during the rainy season, that we could contract some of the work out so that this department can catch up and don't fall too far behind.
Right.
My other question is, did this department is the employees of the cemetery, they are under this department?
No, that's a
not-
separate department.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's another, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. That's the last
another
department.
area where I
Yes.
think we're really short-staffed.
Right.
Bigger that property is, to have the number of staff we have, we're really understaffed in there, I
Right.
believe.
Right. So that's what we're sort of experimenting with as far as a conversation for public works. The great thing about public works and landscaping, you're right, the grass grows aggressively a certain time of season. It's typically from late May through early October. Then it sort of ceases. It actually dies to a tremendous degree, and so it kind of you know, it revises our work crew schedules. But right now, these 5 months here is very aggressive throughout the year. So again, we may be looking at a contractual service that is just for those months when it grows aggressively, or maybe a full year contract.
And could I ask about the life and health insurance?
Mm-hmm.
Our salaries and wages is being decreased, not very much, but it's less than it was last year. But the life insurance and the health insurance went up $20,000. So if you got less staff, I know we probably gonna have, and then you indicated at our last budget workshop that our life and health insurance premium will be going down, but this is a $20,000 increase. Where did that come from and how did that occur?
We had to pick up a 9.5% increase. That's across the board. That's not just this department singly, but we had to pick up an increase for those services.
Which one, health or life? I
Health.
thought that in the last workshop, we say that you were gonna have some significant savings.
That's liability.
Liability.
Yeah, I'll get to that. That's liability, not health.
That's right there.
Life and health is different from liability.
Yeah, I
Liability
knew it. I
is-
thought that
yeah.
was part of, you know.
No, sir.
Yeah.
No, sir. Different track. But
I know you.
Yes, sir.
You stated that you and the finance director and director of would that be public works director are in an infancy stage conversation with regards to contracting or filling those 16
Correct.
all 16 positions.
Yes, sir.
I would strongly encourage a filling of those 16.
Well, here's why I disagree with that. Because when you fill those positions, it's not just salaries you have to pay attention
Understood.
to. It's life, health, and those other amenities that increases your budget, which, as you can see, is not here. However, if you go to a contractual service for 5 months out the year, you can get everything maintained in a timely manner, and then in those dormant months, when the grass doesn't grow aggressively, that contract ceases. So in essence, you're actually saving yourselves money by doing a contract for 5 months versus paying the rest of those positions full-time all year long with additional benefits as well as life, health, etc. So you're actually saving yourself money if you contract, you know, those aggressive months, May through end of September or October, versus a full-year contract, which is typically what, you know, you see from most of these landscape crews. So again, we haven't made a decision about that. I'll take that into strong consideration of what saves us the most money, yet give us the best services in the community and address all of our issues as the mayor was referring.
And not encouraging being wasteful in spending. I guess my frame of thinking was those positions are already funded. Now, when you fund positions, isn't the fringe benefits included in the funding of a position?
No, that's
Or
your
you just
package.
straight salary?
That's salary, but that's not your full package. Because salary could be, I don't know, $25,000.
I want you to understand my question.
No, I understand. Your salary could be $25,000, but your health, retirement, all those other things, that's an additional, I don't know, I think $15,000 to $20,000 in that package. So if you're hiring that many people, you need to ensure that you have the extra revenue for that entire package, as versus a contract, there's no benefits. You just pay the contract.
I understand those intricacies of contract versus FTE, full-time employee. What I'm saying is, when we say here, we had 16 funded positions, but we had 12 employees. I guess I'm looking from a standpoint of, you know, unemployment rate may be good nationally, but when we look at the Glades community, the unemployment rate doesn't reflect the national rate.
Right.
So when we talk about 16 funded positions, does that mean, when we say funded, does it mean salary plus fringes, or does funded mean just straight salary?
No, it means it means all of that encompassed. But I know where you're going with the unemployment rate. If we contract, it's going to be with a local contractor that the people live here. They live here. They'll work for the contractor who happens actually, you know, to be in this area. That that already has contracts in this area. So they're not outside, they're not folks from another area. They're people that actually live in Pahokee that will be under these contracts. Again, I haven't made a decision to do a contract. We may decide, hey, let's pick up 3 or 4 guys, and again, part-time guys don't get those benefits, so keep that in mind as well. So that's something else to think about. But it's just something that I know, as the mayor indicated, that I would like to see a schedule with crews that can address some of those things that our crews currently can't get to in these aggressive months of the season right now. So, we'll take a look at that, and again, it's either going to be a contract or hire additional 4 people, and that would be on the onus of the director of the department to identify some individuals to bring them in for interviews, et cetera, take them through the HR process, or, as I said, do a contract. But point well taken, Mayor, Commissioner Everett.
Again, I don't see any past budgets at the end of the year as far as kind of comparison. I just want to take a look at the electrical services and just ask you whether that's been consistent for the last 3 years. $104,000 is pretty high for one department. Just want to make sure we evenly spreading that out.
That's street lights. That's across the board, all departments. That's not their building. That's street light. Every street light that we have in the city of Pahokee, every park.
Just going under their particular
Yes, sir.
department.
Yes, sir.
They're including right here,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
cause this turbo out there.
And let's look at signs, sidewalks, and streets repairs. We got
Signs will be under our surtax. We're about to put a RP out for replacement of all street signs, all stop signs. I, for one, would be glad when that happens, because sometimes I don't know what street I'm on, but that's a surtax fund that's separate from this budget.
Okay. So the 2,000 would take care of whatever the surtax don't take care of? We got it funded for $2,000.
Yeah, that's just small things. Like if you have to come back and replace one sign,
Right.
that's typically what that's for. Yeah.
Where's repairing potholes? Something that I know is just a Band-Aid effect, but sometimes it's really needed. And sometimes we have potholes in our streets for the longest before we even fill them in. I know we can't fill them in during the rainy season most likely, but I just see potholes sometimes just stay for a sustained long time. Just wondering.
That falls under this general operating funds. If we see a pothole, we take $75 or $100 here and there, and we go get the materials and we fill it. You typically see that under the general maintenance or like general supplies, et cetera, operating supplies. When we have a pothole here or there, we'll fill it. But in the grand scheme, we're relying on our state dollars, the Glades Resurfacing Project, any money we get from FDOT to address those large projects, that's us. But for small potholes, they usually cost us maybe less than $100 to get the equipment, not the equipment, but the asphalt, dry asphalt from Home Depot and fill the pothole. It's not something significant that you'll see in a line item that just specifically says potholes.
But you say that would fall under general?
Operating supplies. Operating supplies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let me go back up there to general liability insurance, if I can. You see a significant drop there from previous year.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see that across the board for all of our departments. We had an opportunity this year, and I missed the boat last year, to go and research companies that can give us a proposal that's more conducive to the size of city that we are. My first year here, we were fortunate to reduce our liability insurance by, I think, about $110,000. At the time, we were paying like almost $395,000. That was significant. And then it jumped back up by, I think, another 15% that next year. I think another maybe 3 or 4% following. And so we just decided that it was time to explore other companies and other municipal entities, other entities that provide liability insurance. So this year, we let our carrier know that we were going out for new recommendations on liability insurance. And once that happened, the current company significantly came in lower. But I wasn't overly pleased with the services. The HR manager, she was here, she'd tell you, we laminated over this decision probably for at least a month, because the difference was so much lower than we had expected it to come in at. But last year we paid $295 in liability insurance. This year with a new company, Priya, we're going to pay $178. That is a significant reduction in liability. And, you know, that's over $100,000 that we are conserving or can, you know, identify other uses for. And that's a 2-year lock of that rate. And so we're excited about that. We're happy that, you know, we were able to, one, identify a company, one of the more reputable companies out there that can give us that rate. I always thought it was too high. For a city that doesn't have fire and police directly under its helm, I always thought that we paid significantly so much more for liability insurance. Well, this year, you know, and for the next 2 years, you know, we'll see a big reduction in what we've been paying out. That doesn't mean we're going to go out and break the bank, but it does allow us to have this last discussion that we'll have at the end of this, once we finish these 3 departments, on how to fund some things that typically we normally don't have the opportunity to. Along with the sheriff's contract, which is a 2% increase, I think it's about $10,000 more. You know, we're still significantly going to save about $90,000 this year because of the major reduction in liability, and that's why you'll see across the board the big reduction in liability insurance. So we're glad to announce that tonight.
And that's very good. Just one follow-up question. This you know, with the reduction of the cost, with our services is not going to be subpar.
No.
Okay.
No. This company actually leaving PRM and going to Priya. Priya has over about 500 entities on its umbrella. PRM maybe about 35 to 40. Services are significantly about the same, and that's what was sort of, you know, great to see. Was they came in, one was 188, one was 178, one was, I think, 172 or something like that, and they pretty much had the same services, but there was a tweak here and there that we didn't like about the other 2 that we started to go with Priya, and they all have their individual tweaks that you have to pay attention to, because you may get $3 million, you know, coverage for workman's comp, where this one gives you $1 million. You know, what's the difference based on, you know, the type of services being rendered? And so we looked at those individual things because they were so close in their proposals that, you know, we wanted to do something different this year. I've been in touch with Priya actually for the last 2 years. I know their staff very well, and they've been sort of, you know, right on the edge of becoming our carrier for the last 2 years. I just wasn't sure. And last year, legally, I couldn't get out of that agreement because I waited too late to send my termination letter to the current carrier, so I couldn't do anything about it last year. This year, we started in January and stayed on it until we got the rate that we were looking for. So we're excited about that.
And this question is coming from a liability concern. We got up to 16 full-time employees in this department, yet our...
That's a mix of full-time, part-time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yet our protected apparels is only budgeted at $1,000. I'm talking about gloves, safety garters, unless they just sharing those type of equipment, which they shouldn't need to do. I think that line item need to be increased somewhat, unless we just barely giving them enough protection.
No, they get all the protection gear. It just doesn't cost a lot. No, one thing the director does is they have to turn those items in at the end of the day. He inventories it. They're just not careless. We don't. If it gets to the point where we have to purchase something, then, you know, we'll move a line item down and pay for some additional gloves, goggles, etc. They're just not careless with it as far as protective gear. And we've taken care of it.
Something though, the glove, for instance, are they sharing those or each other?
No one's sharing gloves. No one's sharing gloves, goggles, none of that stuff. That's very minimal in that department as far as cost is concerned.
Okay, I have a question about the liability.
Yes.
Are you including, for cars?
That's include all our vehicles and our property, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how many vehicles do we have?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head without talking to the HR manager. I mean, I can sit here and try to count and guess, but I wouldn't be accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to know.
Sure.
Because I see vehicles increasing vehicles on the city property.
Okay.
And I would like to know where the cars are coming from, who driving them, and any vehicles that we're liable to for.
Just be mindful. We took offline when I got here between 2015, 2017, vehicles that were 20 years old. So a lot of vehicles you see now were replacing vehicles. So we weren't adding to the count. We were actually taking vehicles offline that were either it cost too much to maintenance them, or some of the vehicles came from PVSO. When it got to the end of life use, we had to give them back to PVSO. We did several vehicles like that. So we're not, if I had to bring you a count, when I had the opportunity, you would see where we took vehicles offline and we replaced those vehicles with used vehicles. We bought no new vehicles here. They've all been used from the auction. We've been very lucky. But we're not, per se, adding to the amount of fleet that we have. We've actually taken offline more vehicles than we've purchased over the last 2 years.
Okay.
Let me actually follow up to that though. If we still have basically the same number of vehicles and they're being a little more newer now, although they're used vehicles, they're in better shape than what we previously had. Why is that line item still the same as far as maintenance? Would maintenance still hold the same?
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember these vehicles are not driven long distance. I'm the only long distance driver here with the vehicle that I have pretty much, and maybe one or two others. So these vehicles, most of them are around town. They're not long traveling vehicles that go from Palm Beach West to the East Coast, to the West Coast, to the western parts of Palm Beach County every day. So we've been able to maintain these vehicles at minimal cost. And because we have a part-time mechanic that comes in and services them, we've been able to extend their life to a degree. But there's not a lot of maintenance going into these vehicles because they're just not getting the miles that the older vehicles, once had. Of course, they were 20 years old.
I guess part of my question was, if we're getting slightly newer vehicles, I would assume that maintenance would be a little lower than what it's been in previous
Not
years.
necessarily, because a lot of the vehicles that we had to replace didn't get enough maintenance service on them to extend their life. So yes, you're right. A newer vehicle, less parts to replace. But I'm very careful about that, understanding that you still need to maintain those newer vehicles to protect their life extension. And so we had several vehicles that just were not maintained. Currently right now we have, about 4 or 5 agricultural pieces of equipment. They've been sitting out there for 2 years, haven't been maintained. But I'm very careful with the newer vehicles to ensure that they get the proper maintenance because I want them to last. We can't, as Commissioner Walker said, we just can't buy new vehicles every year. And as those old vehicles come offline, we have to replace them with something. So I think that maintenance costs, in some areas it'll be lower there, like, brakes, those things that typically take 3 years for replacement. Yes, that will decrease. But the typical oil change, the annual 6 to 12 month checkup, you know, those will be typical. But those long-term things, like as I said, brakes and those parts that you have to replace, you should see a change there because they are a newer vehicle. But I want to be careful about that and still keep that money there, Mayor, because you just don't know what can happen with these vehicles at any time. They're cars, and anything can happen at any time. So I'm comfortable with that, where that is.
Okay. Yes, I do. Whose vehicles? All right. Who has take on vehicles? I say it like that. Take on home vehicles.
Who has take-home vehicles?
Yes. Does anybody other than you take homes
Yes.
vehicles?
Yes.
Okay. Is that, who are they, may I ask?
We have the finance director that drives a vehicle. The public works director, he drives the public works director truck home. And periodically, the Department of Economic Development would take a vehicle home if there's a meeting on the East Coast before coming into work. Of course, she has access to it for those meetings.
I can understand them having the vehicles when they have meetings, so forth. But I'm concerned about those being driven by employees as take home. That's what I'm gonna use that term because that's what we use in the sheriff's department. So, but when you take home, I would like to know as it's a liability to the city.
No, it's a liability for me to drive a vehicle. It's a liability to pull off from Public Works and go to Marathon gas station. So
I understand
anytime you
that,
get in a vehicle, it's a liability. Anytime. I understand your question, and maybe that's an offline question, not for the budget tonight, and I'll be glad to get into that.
I would
but
like to.
Anytime we drive a vehicle, it's a liability. It doesn't matter how short or how long the distance.
Okay, I would like for us to commission to consideration for the fleet department, and so we will be aware that the commission are aware of this, what's going on with the fleet.
Sure.
Okay.
Again, I think that's an offline conversation separate from this budget meeting tonight.
Who?
I think that's an offline conversation that's separate from this budget meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can bring you an update maybe at an official commission meeting if that's okay.
I wanted to you for earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
For you, okay.
Okay, all right. Any additional questions about this department, Mayor, Commission, before we move on?
Now, just one question. The liability company we had, what was their name?
Priya, but a P, as in pony, Priya.
How you spell it? That's the one we
Priya,
have now?
P-R-I-A, Priya.
And that's who we have now or who we had?
That's who we're getting. What we have now is PRM.
Oh,
Okay?
Please.
All right.
They say.
Page 27, this is our Recreation Department. Recreation Department is
26, right?
27.
27?
I'm sorry, 26.
Okay.
My apologies. This is a dual department where we have, some contractual services that pay staff, and of course our general budget that pays staff as well. We've revised this department to a degree to add an athletic coordinator. We didn't particularly have a definitive position for that for many years, and we're trying to get back to creating a standard Parks and Recs department where you have program managers that run after-school programs, director, assistant director, athletic coordinator that deals with all of our sports programs, sports planning, equipment inventory, facilities, et cetera. So we created that athletic coordinator's position to help, streamline some of our services in this department.
So
Again,
I'm sorry, we still have the assistant director?
yes.
So the three top position in this department is the director.
No, there's only two top positions. That's director and assistant director. Everyone else is not at that.
The athletic coordinator is not a top position?
No, it's just athletic coordinator.
So what's the salary there, just for instance? What are we paying that position?
What I'm currently paying, I want to say 45. Yeah, 45.
That's almost a director's salary based on our current structure in the city.
No.
No?
No, sir.
It's close though.
No, sir.
Okay.
Not for that department. Our departments there are different tiers and departments. You probably could say that, maybe in the human resource department it gets close to a director's position, but not particularly here. Yeah.
What's the salary for the director for finance and HR?
Man, we're not in that department right now. We're in,
Okay,
I can answer that after. I can answer this offline if you want to, but we're in Parks and Recreation right now.
I know, but somebody said that. Okay.
Yeah, let me answer that after we get through the remaining departments. Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Again, you will see a difference in our liability, and a reduction in property, and a reduction in auto liability insurance. That includes, even picking up an additional vehicle van that we so desperately needed here in Parks and Recreation. Again, the cost savings from the liability reduction is, very obvious throughout this budget. And again, it's a major cost savings for us, over the next 2 years.
Okay, question. How many employees we have with the Recreation Department?
If I don't misquote myself, I think we have 5 or 6 full-timers and 3 part-timers. I was correct that time. I did that off the top of my head. Be mindful, one of these days, we will get the gymnasium back open. And that may require maybe additional staff to oversee the operations of the gym throughout the day. So let's be mindful that that is something that we'll have to take a look at, after this budget is decided upon. This is a 2-tier budget, so we have page 27 as well. Yes, Commissioner Everett.
So we got 6 full-time, 3 part-time.
Right.
And you're saying with the city gym being open?
Probably after this budget year,
Yeah.
upcoming budget year.
Mhm.
We'll have to make some adjustments in how that, and that'll probably be a part-time position. You're familiar how gymnasiums operate. They got someone who's there who maintains the gym, make sure it's open, make sure it closes at a certain time, inventories the equipment, etc. Manages, the open play for the public, etc. It probably wouldn't be a full-time position, and in fact, the staff that we have on will probably share some of these responsibilities in maintaining the operation of the gym, i.e. the athletic coordinator office probably will move over there to that building once that gymnasium's open. Pretty sure of it. So in essence, we probably already have the staff coverage for it, but it's just a conversation I know as a city manager I have to include in the 2019-2020 budget, not this year's budget.
Okay. Are there any vacancies?
No, sir. I've just interviewed for the director's position. As you know, we had an interim director, and we just made that hire today. And so that completes all of our hires in this particular department. Now, be mindful, we have sports, and so we have volunteer coaches that come in for all of our athletics as well, and we pay them, but those are paid out through the services, the fees that the parents pay, and those are just part-time referee fees. They're not on the city's payroll whatsoever. So during season, like football season, we'll have an additional 6 coaches. And we sort of consider them staff because they have to go through a background check and all of those things, but they're not officially on our payroll.
So the budget wouldn't address that?
It's probably down here in general operating, because, you know, being a referee for a game or 2 games, it usually runs about $150, if that, for 2 or 3 referees to referee a football game. We probably have, I think, maybe 4 home games that we have to worry about having referees for.
So you got the referee, then you got the volunteer coaching stipends. I don't know how much that's gonna come out to
We don't
a year.
pay, no, sir. They're just volunteers.
Volunteer?
They're just volunteers.
Okay,
Yeah.
at one point I thought.
Don't try to make a bill.
For their volunteer services.
Just volunteers. Yeah.
And the after-school program, the food for a whole year, it only costs us $700?
About that. We're not having full lunches. They're just snacks. And, you know, we're not averaging 200 kids in the program after school. They're just snacks. They're not full meals. It's just to get the kid, you know, energy up, to get them through the 2 hours before their parents pick them up at 6 o'clock. So it's not a major, you know, meal that we're you know, snacks here and there, nothing, you know, juice boxes and et cetera, but no full-time meals. It's just a snack to get them, you know, up and moving, you know, while they're here with the after-school program.
And we talked about it at our last budget workshop, but what would you consider miscellaneous expenses? We got a $5,000 miscellaneous expense.
Maintenance on unforeseen things that occur, maybe equipment that might not have enough money in the equipment line item, gas, if there's an extra trip we have to take for sports, equipment that breaks that we don't intend or project that it will break, things of that nature is miscellaneous.
I know we discussed this on our last budget meeting, and I hope my questions or the questions of my colleagues aren't seen as a witch hunt, but just could we, I guess for accounting purposes, could we give it a name? Because I know one of the things I've been a stickler about, you know, I'm not a fan of numbers anyway, because I'm not the best in math, but one of the things I've been a stickler at the churches I pastored is giving budget line items a name.
Well, this one has a name. It says after school program.
Understood.
It says after school program.
Program, and this is just.
You got to remember, on the after school program, again, you got anything can happen on the after school program. Maybe it's, you know, something has to be replaced. There's something that happens in the classroom with a computer, and we have to replace an item, more notebooks or pencils or pens, etc. All that falls on the after school.
Help me answer my question, because when we say miscellaneous, then we got the after school program. We could say after school program, technology, supplies, technology, office supplies, playground equipment, etc.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to remember, but Commissioner Irvin, that's why, you know, I requested that you sort of come in and spend some time with the Director of Finance. If you come into the Director of Finance and you look at our standard modern technology that we have in City Hall, you'll see all that. It's just not here. Okay. But she needs to know where that item is going and what it looks like and what we're paying. So when you look at our software system, you'll see those things there. You know, what we're paying out and what they're for under miscellaneous.
Now,
But
I'm not-
for budget purposes, you know, if you want us to add 6 more or 7 more lines under miscellaneous, you know, we try to shorten it up because, you know, it can get lengthy here with it being more than one page. But, you know, we can show you, you know, where that is. But I just think miscellaneous expenses after school program, that falls in a lot of categories, you know, in the after school program. But I understand your question.
Now, Mr. Williams, you said now I'm invited to talk
24
with
hours a
finance.
day. We ain't there 24 hours a day,
Now,
but
you-
when you want to come, we'll be there. We'll accommodate you.
You got the tape rolling?
Yeah.
You said I'm invited, right?
No, you're not invited. It's your right as a commissioner and as a citizen of this community to come in, and
Okay.
the
I'm just
director
injecting-
of finance welcomes the opportunity
I'm
to
just
show you how that
injecting some-
system works.
I'm just injecting some humor, but also,
I understand.
You know, any joke has some lace of seriousness, because when I walk in there, sometimes they think I got the bubonic plague.
No, well, actually, we don't think that at all, Commissioner Everett.
Yeah.
Page 27. This is the additional parts of the budget for Parks and Recreation.
You want to have?
She wanted to ask a question. She had a question for.
Oh, talking about, she said she looked cold.
The AC. So can you turn the AC up so she's cold?
Down.
Turn it
Turn
up.
it up.
Okay.
It's cold in here.
It's cold.
Turn the electrical service of the $25,000 on that just for,
Where are you looking at? What line item
on
is that?
page 26, electrical service of $25,000. That just recreation department or
No, it's
that,
across.
that goes?
Shared.
Okay.
27, page 27. This is additional parts of the Department of Parks and Recreation. There is a reduction there in salary for 2018, 2019.
Thank you.
Correction. That's a typo. You sure? That's a correction.
What's the correction?
That highlight.
Okay. Just for information, I see it took a hike up 2017, 2018 of little over 2,000, then took a dive back down
Where? What line item?
to the salaries and wages. I'm sorry.
Right. That's from 2016. We're going into 2018, but there's no change. That was a typo.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's a typo. Sorry.
So the 90 should have
It was
been
the
80.
90,000.
8. Okay, gotcha.
Right.
And this program is being funded by Palm Beach County funds, right?
All right. Page 28. If there's no questions about this part of the program. I said Parks and Recs have a lengthy, because of the after-school programming.
How many students we're licensed for? Is that, what, 50 or less, a little, give or take? How many students we're sized for? Is it 50 or give or take?
No, it's the ratio of what you can put into the program and what's allowed through the grant. It's more than 50. We can have 100 kids in
Okay.
an after-school program. You know, so it's the same with summer enrichment. We can have 150 kids.
Okay.
As long as the ratio is per the standards for the state, for the county and the state, you can put 150 kids in a summer enrichment program or after-school program. Me personally, I'd like to see a summer enrichment program where we have 150 kids, because that's a conversation with all the summer camps we have in Pahokee, because we have so many of them. And we also share the population of kids with after school. The middle school runs after school program, elementary school runs after school program, And so we probably average 25, 30 kids. A lot of some of those kids flow over from after school to the football program after school and go to practice. But yeah, so it's no specified number under the grant. It's what you can maintain with a staff in the ratio per the county and state standards.
Do we,
And-
do,
Yes, ma'am.
do you make efforts in trying to increase attendance?
Yes, ma'am. We've had some creative things. Getting away from the budget for a moment, we've done some creative things that have brought the attention of Parks and Recs to the community. We know we can do more. For us working with our churches and talking to our parents, getting out, beating the streets and going to the parent-teacher nights and beating the parents first day of school and handing those flyers out, posting them, in strategic places around town, increasing the confidence that we're the entity that can provide great after-school programming as well as sports. We know there's some room for improvement there with those recruitment tactics that we have, and we're working on that. We know that there's been a little loss of some confidence in Parks and Recreation, but with all the renovations that are coming, the plans that we have for our city football field, and if you have an opportunity, go into our classrooms. We just wrapped up phase 2 of all our classroom renovations here at this campus, and you'll be very pleased with what we've done over the last 3 months, just in our classrooms and our corridors of this facility, which it gives parents the confidence that not only that we have good staff, that we have a facility that is clean, is maintained, it's safe, it's vibrant, it's colorful, has the technology. We got a new computer center now here on campus as well for our kids. I think over 15 new computers, so we have a good computer lab. My focus for this school year is bringing in those extra tutors from the middle school, elementary school, to work with those kids in the after school to ensure that they can complement our after school staff as well. But we're looking for volunteers to do that, and maybe some retirees as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about also with our seniors?
Our senior program?
Yes. Is anything creative we're think,
Not fiscally, because we get some money from the county for our senior program, but I think there are some things that can be improved on in the 2018-2019 year. I want to wait until the new director comes in on board to have those conversations about how we can increase our services to our seniors and some additional programming that we can infuse into the senior program. But I want to wait till the director comes online, and he comes to us, in a couple of weeks. And so when they get here, we'll have, a full conversation about all of the services in Parks and Recreation.
I've heard from a couple of the seniors, and one of their concerns was that the trips that they used to take has been declining. So I'm just wondering if that's true, and could that be increased in the budget?
I think the quality of the trips have changed. We do the same annual senior trip out of town. It's just where they go and how long they stay is the conversation. But again, I want to wait until the director gets on board fully to have those conversations and make some interdepartmental changes budgetary wise to address some of their inquiries to you. But this year, the term of the trip was shortened based on some other things that occurred in the department. And just be mindful, it's not something we fund; it's actually funded by the county. And maybe we need to look at moving some additional dollars to get them back to that 2.5, 3-day trip that they usually take. But again, I want to wait till we get the director on board and we kind of get everything settled down and have those conversations. There will be program changes in this department once we get everybody in place, not more fiscally, but more just programs and recruitment. As Commissioner Walker mentioned, we'll be making some revisions to one, get Parks and Recs program, you know, back on that page that we know it should be on, where we have a overwhelming amount of support from parents, the kids, and the community, and everybody around us. Facilities as well. You know, our facilities are, you know, coming back online, and we're thankful for the county for assisting us in that, with the gymnasium specifically, when they start those renovations, that will add not a new dynamic, but a historical dynamic to Parks and Recreation here in the city of Pahokee, along with hopefully the approval by this commission for renovations to the city football field.
I'm going to say this. We need to not allow them to take long trips. Along, you know, like last year they took Georgia. That's too long. Tour trip alone.
Understood.
You know, so I'm
Yes, ma'am.
saying. So I'll.
You said that trip was too long?
Too long for them. Yeah.
She's referring to the ride, actually.
The ride.
The
Yeah.
ride.
No.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. This year we didn't go
thank-
out of state.
Long
Long
trip.
ride.
The long
Yeah.
trip.
Oh, shoot, I thought they really enjoyed it.
No, well, not according to some that I talked
Oh, because
Well, we didn't go out of state this year. So.
I had a few shallow whites said they enjoyed going up the hot lap.
Yeah.
to. Well, it was some was too long for.
Oh,
them.
okay.
But
You
it-
had someone there like 90 years old, so that was
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah,
Oh,
They-
yeah.
kind of long.
that's what they talking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Long
I could
trip.
imagine.
Yeah. For the younger ones, it was okay.
All right. Let's move forward. Marina Campground.
We took the trip for the long.
As you can see here, general liability has been reduced because of our new proposal for liability insurance. Property insurance was a stickler for me because we're wrapping up one of the marina projects. We finally have the railing almost significantly completed around the marina. We know that was a major issue at the marina. Not having that railing there was a major liability to the city of Pahokee. Anyone can fall in, and now that that's been installed, that certainly helps our liability insurance significantly. We can actually get, you know, full coverage out there now on that marina seawall for the city of Pahokee. So that was very helpful that we could get that in place. Of course, that didn't really contribute to this reduction. That reduction was contributed to the proposals that we went out on the street for. I expect the 2019-2020 for the marina to fall even more after that is reassessed for that fiscal year.
Could you talk about the salaries a minute for me? We have just 5,600, but what salary is that?
That salary, that's a shared, that's just part of that salary there for that particular FTE at the marina. The other parts of her salary comes from the first department that you saw, Public Works. But
So
some
she
of it
got
comes from the
split
marina.
duties?
No, it's just it's split between this department and Public Works because she has a shared duty of working at the marina under that entity and working really
That's why I
in
said
Public
split
Works.
duties, right, okay.
Right. Also be aware, hopefully, when we do get a operator at the marina, some of these services, we don't know exactly what they are, but we have to operate like we will be managing the marina full-time through 2018, 2019. Some of these costs will go backwards somewhat because we will not take on some of the costs as far as like utilities and some of the maintenance costs that it requires to keep the marina, you know, operating. So keep that in mind as well. This may change if we are able to get an operator in there and manage some of these areas of the marina.
If I read the website right, don't we have a marina coordinator position that was?
Yeah, we put one out, but that was never that was never filled. And now that we're going into having someone manage, they will take over that position for the marina.
Because
So
I
we don't
thought I
have to
saw
fund
that
it.
up recent.
Yeah, it was recent.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So it's been taken down?
No, it's still there. It's still there.
Is that a full-time position?
It was more part-time. That's the person that takes the reservations there at night when the RVs come in late at night. Talks on the phone to make reservations for the campground and marina. When the boats come in the dock at 3 a.m., there's someone there, or there's a phone call, a cell phone they can call, etc. But with the 3 leases that are out there, we anticipate that that position will be taken over by that entity. It won't be a responsibility for the city of Pahokee any longer.
Okay. Well, I
So Cheryl, the one that they're now, she would probably just come over to the
No,
city,
we
or she'll.
Cheryl's comfortable there, and others are comfortable with her being there as well. So she may remain, at the marina, or she may go into an administrative office, under public works. But she most likely will end up staying there. It's just those other things that we're responsible for that will most likely change. Like I said, utilities, maintenance costs, etc., landscaping, all those things will fall under that new entity and no longer the city of Pahokee. So we won't be expending some of our equipment services at the marina for those types of things.
So until we get a full-time operator, you don't anticipate us utilizing security at any time?
The security was there for the renovations,
Right.
because it's closed right now, and we needed those services. They have discussed, that group has discussed bringing in their own security
Now, I'm
services.
talking about prior to bringing a full-time operator on board,
Mhm.
do you anticipate us paying for security for any reason?
No, because the new security system that we put in there, all the cameras, and there are a lot of cameras there now. We're looking to turn some of that operations over to PVSO as a jump station for them, where they will be on site and monitor on not just on this side of the dike, but actually on that side of the dike, and they are able to do it more efficiently there because of the over the 20 cameras that we have in operation, and they'll be in the main substation where all of the cameras have been installed, all of the screens have been installed, and so we've had discussions with PVSO that they'll make that a station for them to
I guess the reason
monitor.
I'm bringing that up, I look at those campers as like tourists. They are not from here. This is I know a lot of them come seasonal, but a lot of them are not from here. And one of the benefits of a campsite is to have adequate security. I'm just thinking.
Well, Mayor, we haven't finished the project yet.
Okay.
One of the things is to install security gates into the entryway into the campground, which you had here before, and it was taken down. The project's not finished. That is one of the projects that we plan to install. There is a security entryway gates into the campground where if you don't have a reservation, you don't have the code, you haven't stopped by the main office, you won't be able to get in from the top of the dike or the bottom. It will be, gated off. And again, you had that here before it was done away with for some decision that was made, I think, between the city and the Corps because it was doing some work. But plans are to reinstall those security gates, which is essentially what many of them have referenced is the security gate.
Is Cheryl still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any additional questions, Mayor?
If I could, I just want to quickly go back to the recreation department budget just for a consideration of something we could do. I know in the past I've talked about having a movie night. I'm gonna give you an example. The city of Revere Beach, they have what they call jazz in the park. If they're charging it's real minimum, it may be $5 if they charge anything, but it's a monthly or bi-weekly event they host. And I've been discussing, I think I've discussed it with you before, a movie night. There's a company out there that
Movie in the park?
in the park.
Oh, okay.
Play movies in the park. I think it charged like $350, $400. We could sell if we need to offset the cost, like hot dogs and popcorn and Coke. But one of the complaints in this community is there's not a lot of activities, and that could fall on the Parks and Recreation, where if it's not monthly, maybe even quarterly, 4 times a year, we can have an activity for our community to come out. They bring in lawn chairs and watch a movie.
We're discussing that vessel. That I
That's
think
gonna
that's
be
a good
big
idea.
plus too.
Yeah.
But then that's why I'm saying maybe we can do this on a quarterly basis. That's something we can
Okay.
think about it. The reason I'm bringing it up now, if it can be done, maybe we can budget for it to be done.
But Mary, if
Why-
I can ask, is that also one of the future plans for the marina and the renovation they have in Jazz on the Lake? Is that
Yeah, I wasn't talking about
some-
just using that as an example of what other cities are trying to do for entertainment for their residents. I wasn't proposing jazz in the park, but I was proposing a movie in the park. So I don't think the marina will be doing that. If they are, then that's gonna be a plus. All I'm looking for is some activities, a little more activities
Yeah.
that we can
We-
provide,
we-
and I figure that can go on the Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of those
That month
miscellaneous
of-
things
They
there,
do
but
it any time
Yeah.
like that.
again, that's one of those miscellaneous things there that we can explore. And again, when the director comes on board here, we can have that conversation. I've notated it here, and we can have that discussion. It's not something that's
Yeah,
you know,
and it don't
taxing to the
necessarily
city.
have to be on the
Yeah,
Parks and Recreation,
understand.
it could be on the community development, some kind of
yeah,
activity.
shared costs across
Yeah,
the board.
right.
Okay, all right.
It should be monthly, a monthly activity.
All right. Page 34. This is cemetery, last department.
And the first thing on here is salaries and wages. How many employees in this department? How many we have?
You have just 3.
Three?
You have 3. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm gonna say this right up front, that's a lot of
Yeah,
territory to cover,
yes.
for 3 employees.
Exactly.
I've heard, and I have written out there lately, I mean, they're out in the sun almost 8 hours a day. The equipment they're using is old. They don't have updated equipment.
Exactly.
And their salary probably one of the lowest in the city. I don't know how you get some folks to ride that far out. I hope that's one of the departments.
They drive city vehicles.
Okay. They do, in the
They don't
morning, they
try
pick
their
up
cars.
a vehicle, and that's how they get out there and back.
Well, let me say this. We know the cemetery is a challenge. We've actually purchased, some new equipment out there just recently for the cemetery. It was a long time coming. I don't know if you've been updated on those things, but we've made some changes out there at the cemetery as far as equipment is concerned. We still got more to purchase. As we come to this end of this fiscal year, we'll look at those things that need to be improved as far as the equipment and services. The challenge with the cemetery doesn't generate any revenue for us, yet we put out enough revenue in salaries and benefits. And so we don't break even. We actually break less than even on the cemetery on a yearly basis. But we have some policy challenges there. We have the Henderson Fund of almost $800,000 that sits in the bank, and it collects about $1,200, and you'll see that here somewhere in the budget. And that's all we can do with the Henderson Fund. You got $800,000 in a fund that we can't utilize. And one thing that I've asked the city attorney to do, and I've had a conversation even with the vice mayor about this, is to go back and let's research how we can go back to the Henderson family and have that conversation about changing the dynamics of that agreement, where we can get our hands on some of that money to improve some of the day-to-day operational requirements. Right now, we can borrow against the Henderson Fund, but we have to pay it back, and that's if you have the money to pay it back. I don't want to delve back into that because we've done that here before. I think the best thing to do moving forward is to go back to the Henderson family and have that conversation. And it's beyond this budget conversation tonight, but to have that conversation about the Henderson Fund and how we can access the Henderson Fund. Because right now we just hold it in the bank, getting interest of what, 2.5, 3%, if that, about $1,300 that we gather, and that's it. If we had access to that money, we wouldn't have this conversation about some of the things that need to be replaced out there. And that's because we break less than even on the services out there. You can come to the realization that maybe Port Mayaka needs to be privately operated. I mean, we probably need to sell it and let a private operator operate it while we keep the rights to the Henderson Fund, keep the rights to doing the 1928 storm every year, and let a private entity operate it, significantly reducing your overhead costs and probably, get some improved services if a private, cemetery company could do that. Now, that's not a decision we need to make tonight, but sometime in the future, Gary's going to have the conversation about the Henderson Fund with the family. If we can't come to some type of conclusion that allows us to access those funds and change the policy on how we accepted the funds to begin with, then that may be an option that you look at down the road. Not tonight, not a long-term conversation, but that's something that we have to look at if we're serious about bringing this cemetery up to the standard that we know it should be. Somewhere in a conversation, in a commission meeting, we're going to have that conversation. Do we want to retain running the cemetery, operating the cemetery, or do we want to take it out for RP for someone to purchase it and operate it, under their umbrella, while we remain, in some respects, still the caretakers of the Henderson Fund and the rights to host the 1928 storm remembrance. I think that's something beyond here, but it's something we have to think about because, like I said, we break less than even on the cemetery services of, after we do a funeral, pay for the headstone, etc. We break less than even on revenue here.
Well, I got a if I may, I got a statement and a question. Statement is, and I know from your position where you're sitting and where the finance director sits, you think dollar and cents and savings, and that's a commendable thing. I guess where I stand, where I sit, I'm just looking at when we start looking, and I know this is not a conversation where you're talking about let's take action this fiscal year or next fiscal year. I don't know. It's just, I know an idea that just popped up. But when I think about the fact that we don't have garbage, we don't have water, we don't have policing, we just had a conversation about outsourcing our groundkeeping, and now we're talking about giving up our cemetery. After a while, we just gonna be existing. Well, if we look at outsourcing.
Well, that's not. Wait a minute. That's not outsourcing because they would have to pay us for that property. They would have to pay us. We're not giving it away. So it's not. Not outsourcing. It's being.
Bad word. Not outsourcing, but we're giving away.
Well,
essentially.
Well,
we getting some money for it, but I'm saying we're I don't know. I just feel like
we're that's just a conversation for future. It's an exploration trip that we need to make.
Exactly.
That's it.
Now my question, man.
Yes, sir.
Now my question. You said 3 employees. Of those 3 employees, who are those 3 employees? I mean, how are they rated? How they're entitled? How they're considered?
We have one that's considered a cemetery, supervisor.
Okay.
And then you have 2 direct staff. We consider them direct, you could call them maintenance staff, but, there's really no real title for them because they're cemetery workers, which is what we consider them, and that's it.
So 2 direct staff and a supervisor. And 2, that's a lot of land out there, boy.
It's like.
Yeah.
Not only
For
that,
2 people.
Yeah.
not only that, if you pay 2 people's, just say $15 an hour, that's 30,000 a year. That would be 60,000 in salary. Yet right now, the 3, that's included supervisor, only making 84. So their salary is pretty low. We really need to look at that position and what they're doing and see if that can be increased. But I want to go back to the cemetery just briefly. Your conversation that you just brought up have been explored before. And I think at some point we do need to look at that. But my concern is, I mean, the word out now, and we know rumors kind of fly rampant in Pahokee, but the word has been out that the administration is already have been working on plans to address that as far as outsourcing it or whatever you want to call it. So it may be new to us, but there are some perception those talks have already occurred, and we haven't given any authorization that we should be pursuing that. I'm not saying
well, let me correct you. I have conversations about the city of Pahokee all the time. It can be the cemetery, Parks and Recs, Public Works. They're my private conversations. But until I bring something official to this dais, they're just my private conversations. But to your point, we haven't had any conversations with anyone about the cemetery as far as selling it or giving it away for someone else to privately manage it. It's just a conversation that I have with our elected officials that we have some options moving forward that we have to look at. My first attempt is to get with the Henderson family and address the Henderson Fund so we can, utilize that Henderson Fund, fully. And then we wouldn't have this conversation, at all. So until that occurs and we come to some conclusion, we'll maintain this cemetery and continue to explore improving the equipment and of course addressing some of the compensation as well moving into this year. So no, I haven't had any official or unofficial conversations about it, just exploration in my own mind about how to increase the services out there, performance of the services, not the staff performance, but just being able to maintain it.
My only question with the cemetery, like I go out there a lot because you have funerals and stuff, and I can agree one thing, they works hard out there, and for 3, and I know one person is sick now. I don't know whether he came back to work, but the salaries out there really, I think is very low. If we can find a way to raise their salaries out there, honestly, whether you have to cut something from somewhere else to give them their salary, because those they work whether it had to be rain, snow, or what. I was out there one time, they had 3 funerals right back to back. And it was like 1 or 2 guys trying to dig those holes. It's where I think they really need the right equipment to work out there, and their salaries should be raised out there. They
In
really
addition,
do. Additional to me, at least 2 more, at least part-time.
Yeah, you're gonna need some more.
At least 2 part-time employees. Because I know one lasted about a week or so. They had a volunteer person go out there to try to help because it was understaffed and they had a lot of funerals.
And too, I say this too,
Something to look at.
to piggyback off that distance that they out there, it's almost seems like you're on an island on your
Yeah.
own. And I know the administration care and concerned about,
It's
you know,
Martin
what's going
County,
out
that's for
there.
sure.
But it's almost like out of sight, out of mind.
Well, not necessarily, because we put security cameras out there around the facility itself, and so that's brought a lot of, safety to that particular supervisor out there. She feels much more comfortable now that we've had that, security out there as far as being able to look around the entire facility itself. I don't know if you're aware of that, but we had that installed earlier this year.
Another question. Now, the person that's a supervisor out there, so so that falls under what? So there's no director?
Well, typically, sometimes Mr. Johnson sort of goes, because it's a heavy equipment type of operation. So most of the times, the particular Ms. Kelly does lean on the Public Works Director for assistance because they share some of the same equipment. And so he sort of manages some of that operation when it comes to the equipment. But as far as the day-to-day, the management of the staff and that's Ms. Kelly. But he sort of shares that responsibility in the parts when it comes to the equipment and making sure that things are out there are being taken care of. And we have sent our public works staff out there when they fall short on some of the duties that they're trying to maintain out there because of the equipment, et cetera. They'll take their equipment out there and share it and make sure everything's maintained. So there's a cooperation, interdepartmental cooperation there that's working, you know, to a degree that is satisfactory. But of course, as the mayor said, not to the level that we needed. But it does work right now. So he sort of, you know, leads it to a degree, but again, he doesn't have his footprint on it daily like Ms. Kelly does. And that's more from an equipment standpoint. She may have said, hey, you know, this piece of equipment's not operating. Can you bring, you know, the match equipment from the city public works and help us out? And that typically happens. Yeah.
So you gotta go back to what I'm saying, at least 2 more part-time guys, then you
Well,
have to pull.
Commissioner Mervin, you have to realize you're talking about where that money is going to come from.
Oh, somewhere. But I think somewhere for the cemetery, I think it should be somewhere in here somewhere.
Exactly.
That we should be able to find something about their salaries and at least 2, because I don't know if you've been out there. I'm telling you, it's not easy working. I don't work out there, but I've been out there.
I can see maybe, you know,
And they do a lot of
you
maintenance
know,
out
finding an
there, so-
additional part-time, and we did have an additional part-time out there at one time. They had 3, and that was really significant. And I think that's definitely an exploration that the road that we can go back down again with the supervisor out there, because that was a big help when she had 3 and not just 2. And that 3rd person just recently stopped working out there, maybe about 3 months ago. 3 months ago, and when that person was there, the services, they were able to maintain, you know, pretty good. But we can add an additional person, and we had an additional person there, but it wasn't refilled. So we can add another part-timer there. And when that person was there, their services were very, very manageable with 3 staff out there.
Is it agreeable that the workload is more than the staffing that's out there?
No, because you don't have a funeral every weekend.
But maintenance
well,
of it, because is it
the
considered
maintenance
perpetual
falls
care?
under the care of the Henderson, and that's what I was saying earlier, that we are strapped by the budget that we have, and the Henderson fund that sits there, that is for these things that we can't access because the way they gave us the Henderson fund. And so that $800,000 certainly could buy, you know, a host of equipment that we need to operate the cemetery, to maintain it, but we can't access it. And that's why I said, you know, beyond this budget workshop tonight, that we need to have a conversation with the family and see where we can change that prerequisite on the Henderson Fund when they gave it to us. Because essentially it doesn't work for us. We're getting $1,200 in interest. That's it. But the $800,000 just sits there. And it's been sitting there for quite some time because we can't access it. And so I think that's where we start first when it comes to equipment. As far as a part-timer, we can, you know, we can find the leniency in the budget to get a part-timer, because we had one before, and that was very helpful to that staff out there.
But currently, the answer to Commissioner Everett's question would be yes. The staffing is really inadequate. I mean, our hands are tied and ain't a whole lot we can do, but we're trying to explore ways that we can enhance that staff. I'm gonna give you this analysis. I got the property, about an acre, a little over an acre. And on some given weekends, I have 3 guys working 6 hours for me, giving them $10 an hour. Just a small property like I have, 3. And when the heat is out there, they get behind in that. So I'm just saying, I don't know how many acres the cemetery is, but
It's huge out there.
yeah, 3 person.
My
It
grandma
don't
would
take
say
a rocket science to
my
know
grandma
that
would
they're
say a whole
understaffed.
heap. Yeah.
They're understaffed. It's how we can address it and find a solution for it is a problem, a challenge.
Yeah.
Well,
One question, okay, what about the well, maybe Is there a way maybe you could raise the pricing, you know, or something? Maybe you could raise
Yeah, I mean, you can explore that. I have to bring it back to the commission, of course. We have, you know, raised some of the pricing out there. But yeah, you can look at that. But you want to stay competitive. You don't want to, you know, price yourselves out versus, you know, other, you know, cemeteries around the area, and we have to work with these funeral homes as well, to keep the costs, you know, affordable, you know, for our residents, for their loved ones as well. So, you know, we can take a look at that, but that's something I try to stay away from, because we do at times, families walk in and they can't pay us that amount, and we have to work something out with them so they can have, you know, a proper burial. So I try to stay away from that, because I know they're already being priced out for the other services by the funeral home themselves. So we try to not add to their, you know, their sorrow by, you know, trying to tax them out. I mean, you can look at doing that, but, you know, I wouldn't want to recommend it, you know, at this time. I think the best thing, bring that another staff on, for one, look at some ways where we can increase the salaries. I think we have increased the salaries this year, and that doesn't include some other things that we're going to talk about once we finish up this department here, once we talk about, you know, cost of living. But yeah, we can look at that, Commissioner Mervin, but I try to stay away from that. But it's a cemetery, and what we can't rely on is that there's going to be a burial every day, every week, because there isn't. And so that's why I said we break less than even on the services out there. But again, to Commissioner Everett's point, we need to look at adding this, you know, some more folks out there for assistance, and we need to explore the Henderson Fund and see how we can address some more equipment out there as well.
I think I think manpower, and I guess an agreed sentiment is not only human power, but also a financial increase for them, and maybe exploring something creative.
I'm sorry, sir.
Because I'm not wishing for people to die, because, you know, I'm somewhat inwardly mourning because, you know, my favorite singer isn't doing well, Aretha Franklin, but so I ain't hoping nobody die. But even if we can do something creative, and even talk to that Henderson family, because and see, is there something that we can, like you say, we can do, or and as much as it may seem like we're exchanging or giving away, just looking at something creative.
The last thing I need to research here is Martin County themselves. The cemeteries in Martin County, they utilize it just like we do, and I think as a collective team, you know, there needs to be, you know, from the mayor's office, a correspondence to Martin County, you know, exploring in their budget, you know, some operating funds, because this facility sits in Martin County, not in Pahokee, not Palm Beach County, and so we share. Will, you know, they are allowed to come in and utilize the cemetery as well, and I think. Do
they use it?
And since they're not incorporated, I think that would be a good idea.
Right. So
to have a shared cost.
that's another exploration that we're going to have to take a look at as well. You know, I mean, $50,000 would be great if I could get that from their budget on a yearly basis. You know, that would certainly help us out, because again, it's a Martin County facility, you know, being operated by a city in another county. You know, that's different, you know, in interlocal government relationships. Yeah. You typically don't see that, but that's what's happening here, and that's another conversation we need to have with that county, and that may have to come from Mayor McKinley's office via, you know, the city of Pahokee as well. So.
Just one question out of curiosity. The 3 staff that works there now, are they working on an average of 5 days, or do they have to sometime work 6 days?
It's 5 days, because they work those 5 days and they take their 2 days. If they work a Saturday, then they're not working Monday. If there's no funeral on Saturday, it's Monday through Friday. And so it fluctuates like that. So. Additional questions, Mayor? Commission. All right. Thank you very much for that. There one more piece of literature here, and it is the cost of living at 1.5% and bonus. As you can see on the second page, you have a total for cost of living. If we do a cost of living there, it'll cost us about $19,428. If we just do a bonus, as you can see, it'll only cost you $3,700. At this time, it's there for you to make a comment on, Commission, Mayor,
Well,
Commission.
I think at our last budget workshop and then even in our commission meeting, we wanted to explore a combination, and that combination was either a cost of living and a merit, which means maybe not every single stand.
Merit is annual review, sir.
Right.
Okay.
But it
So
still
we're
has to be
talking bonus.
budgeted, right.
We're talking bonus, and, well, that is budget, so you're talking bonus and cost of living here. So you want to do both? You want to do both, it's $24,000, not 19.
So if we do both of those, we're really talking about a 3-tier possible increase. A cost of living, an annual increase.
And
a
those who
bonus.
may get something from their annual
Right.
performance review, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Based on compar-
yeah. So it's your decision whether you want to do both or one of these two here. It's up to the commission to let us know.
Yeah, if it was up to me, I would do both.
Yeah.
This is
Okay,
not
so
a
you
whole
saying the
lot
cost
of,
of living, the bonus, this don't count their annual review?
No,
Whatever
no.
they get some.
And this is
Okay.
excluding, this includes everyone except for you and directors.
No, this is everyone, except me. I'm on contract, so it doesn't include me. I don't want a bonus and I don't want a cost of living.
Okay, I do see it, I see it, I see it.
And we can.
And how did we get to 1.5?
That's what he suggested at the time. That's typical what you see. You see a 1.5 to 2.5, you know,
just for the record,
but
just for,
you know,
just,
again, we're looking at our budget and what we can afford and what we can do here. And so
just for the
that's
record though, city manager want to
Yes,
make
sir.
this clear. I basically didn't suggest 1.5, I say at a minimum, that's probably at a minimum what we should at least be considering. I don't want employees to say, you know what, y'all got a 1.5 because the mayor suggested that's what y'all should get.
Right.
I wish they get a
Well-
whole lot more than that.
well, that's typically what you have here, anywhere from 1% to 3%. You know, that's the state does that. You know, so that's what we came up with based on what we feel that we can afford at this time.
So we can't add another 0.5%? Do at least 2.5?
Not 2.5, at least a 2%.
Well, I'm just saying,
give us a moment.
I mean,
At
we
least
know
a 2.
people that like money, and you want to at least
But
do
we'll-
something that
but we-
fringes don't eat up.
But we ain't the one getting it, but.
That's
A
why I'm saying we
2%,
don't
a
want
2%
that
mayor takes you to 33.
That's a discussion we need to have.
Yeah. I think a 2%, I would vote on a 2%, both with the cost of living and the bonus.
Well,
I would do. I
The
would-
2% is 33.
Okay.
Are you making a recommendation I should pull some money from another
Well,
department?
well, you did great in saving the city that money on liability. I just was listening,
All right.
And that's right, Miss Clark. Do you disagree?
Can't afford it, Director of Finance says.
She said we can't afford it?
We can't.
Are you all going to
Oh, we can't afford it.
Are you all going to speak about the commissioner's salary? Because I want to know.
Ma'am,
I want.
That's a,
Well, we're gonna try.
We need
reduce your
to.
salaries?
Yes.
Yeah,
'cause-
we can do that.
huh?
Do what?
We can do that.
not
He said
reduced.
reduce. Now, our salary can only be increased by ordinance, I'm gonna
but-
say by a charter
Charter.
amendment, and it have to go before the voters.
And we would, yeah, then it won't come
But
into
no,
effect till next
you.
election.
I understand that.
But I agree
But
with
we,
Commissioner
we,
Wall. It
we
need
need
to
to,
be discussed.
we need to discuss
I agree.
for ourselves.
Okay.
Cause $400 a month is ludicrous.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we gotta see.
Well, we got to let's try to hash this, this 2%.
No, we going to
We
do,
got a citizen say they'll pay ours, so
we
agree.
are agreeing for the 2%
that's my suggestion.
now.
With our share, but I'm saying.
No, the 2%.
Oh, yeah, right. that's-
Cost of living.
I said, that's mine.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm good with that.
I have to get the okay from the director of finance.
And y'all saved all that money.
We'll have to make it work.
Ms. Finance, can we do 2%?
You would have to fund it from fund balance to balance the budget.
Excuse
The
me?
budget is already over, meaning you have enough revenues to fund your full budget. So if I have money left over this year, it's how I'll have to end up funding the raises.
So it's
Okay.
doable. It's just, you know, have to
Okay.
push the numbers around a little bit
Okay,
to make it work.
use it, cause I don't understand that, because we're going to give the, city manager $28,000. So where that?
No, ma'am, you're
28
not giving me $28,000.
Huh? No, no, you didn't, you're,
It wasn't 28.
what?
It was 20.
It was 20.
Okay,
Yeah.
same difference,
So she's saying use
much
that to.
less, but same difference. So
We'll be-
I'm just,
we'll-
yeah, I'm just
we'll-
asking, I'm just asking, cause I don't understand why we gonna give him 28,000, but say, and then, you know, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I just want him
Well, we're not talking
understanding.
the city manager's contract. That conversation is gone and took flight.
No,
We're talking about our staff here
right.
tonight.
That's
so
that's right.
important.
But I'm talking about now. I'm talking about why we gonna give 28,000, but can't give us employee more money or the what you call cost of living, whatever.
But no one
That's
said we
some-
weren't doing that, Commissioner.
You're gonna have to do it from funds that we have.
Okay, we can do
Right.
that.
Have enough revenue,
That's what. Yeah.
but instead of putting money into the reserves, you're gonna have to use it to do increases.
I understand. I don't understand that.
We can do the cost of living increase.
And could we,
So what is your recommendation?
yeah, we'll do I think it's unanimous, we want to do at least at 2% if we can get it done. That's
Exactly.
that's look like our desire to do.
All right.
I'm just wondering also if there's any wiggle room in our, service, fee for services. Are we so low in anything that it could, recommend an increase? Or could be considered for an increase? User fees, is there anything out there that could probably generate some
Well,
additional revenue?
You have to remember, you just changed all your fee structures in building planning and zoning, all the fees that we apply to services when people walk into City Hall. You just changed that
Yeah.
a couple of months ago.
So that's factored
So
in.
if you want, yeah, all that's factored in. If you want to go back and look at it again, that's a commission conversation, and we'd have to make another recommendation. But you just increased fees at City Hall for some of our services already. Of course, you're welcome to go back and increase that anytime you want, based on what you feel it should be. So that's but we'll go back and we'll take the recommendation and we'll make it work. Any additional questions?
And if our abalone types, that's pretty accurate, what
Oh,
we're
yeah.
projecting?
Yeah, fortunately, we're locked into that, so not changing. But any additional questions? All right.
I just want to make a statement. I'm not trying to be difficult, but, you know, I'm trying to understand your rationale, some things. So I just want to know, understand that, your
But
rationale.
Commissioner
for-
Walker,
Okay.
let's have an offline conversation so I can see if I can bring you,
If you,
the same concept. I know. All right, Mayor, Commission, this is our 2018-2019 budget. At our next, not the next commission meeting, I think is the next one, we'll do the preliminaries on this budget as far as public comment on it, and then that following meeting, we'll pass it out. Well, no, we have to wait until the county and the school board pass theirs, and then we'll pass ours. I think the last commission meeting in September, barring there are any other additional changes. We have, we hope that there's some changes throughout the city of Pahokee between this year and 2020 that changes our ad valorem, as the mayor said. We're locked into a lot of our property taxes being what they are until we have more housing development out here, more business development in this community. Our revenues checks sort of look the same throughout the year. So that's why I said earlier, my creativity is in our contracts. Every year I look at our contracts and I see where we can save. And we were fortunate this year to save, over $100,000 in liability insurance, which allows us to have this conversation about staff and the cost of living. And I'm going to continue doing that. Every single fiscal year, we'll look at how to address contracting and reduce our overall costs. And if that means I have to, go out for proposals on liability insurance every year to maintain that cost, I will. But it does take a lot of creativity when you have a budget of this size. But I feel as our economic picture changes, our revenue opportunities will change as well in the near future. So we've been very strategic and very blessed this year with this particular liability insurance contract being significantly decreased, which allows us to do some different things in this year's budget for our staff. So thank you for that support, and we look forward to continuing moving this city forward. Commissioner Everett, I know he was motioning, but Mayor, sorry.
We're gonna have him do it on his comments, got one. And
Go. Oh, no, good, go ahead.
we're gonna start with Vice Mayor Mervin. We're in Section D, discussion, comments concerning of the City Commission.
I'm done. I think I'm pleased. I know it's just those two departments I think really work very hard, that Public Works Department and the cemetery. And I know they be out, and now it's extremely hot, and they be out cutting, and, I even sometimes go by Gatorade and take them just because they out in the sun on the side of the road. But I think if we take care of our employees, they'll be willing to stay with the city. So I always say that I think we should take care and treat them right. And I know cost of living is good, but like some of the salaries that they make, 10, 11, some of them have families and and once they take out taxes, and sometimes they can't afford the insurance because of the pay rate that they have. So that's why it just, whatever we could do to try to find, to make them, they'll be happy to come to work, and pleased to come to work if they're making a good salary. I know we all want a good salary, so that's all I have to say on that part.
Thank you.
I do want to commend the city manager for finding some cheaper liability and for ensuring that this company is providing services equal to what we have, if not better. Also, in terms of question, is that company rating good?
They're one of the best in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason why I like Priya is because their pool is so large. And so when something happens in their pool, like if there's a increase in workman's comp with, I don't know, 10 entities, they don't try to siphon that increase off on everyone else. It sort of maintains the same for you personally. When I was with PRM, you know, great company, great, you know, benefits, but they were much, much smaller. And so when something happened within that pool, we all felt the increase the next year. And we just could no longer continue in that cycle with them like that. And so I think with PRIA, same services, same quality staff and services being rendered to us, but you know, it forced everyone to come down. But I was just a lot more comfortable, and the ability to lock in a rate, you know, that was significantly, you know, better than doing a crap shot every year, because I got the 15-20% decrease in 2015, and then they shot me back up another 15% after that, because they said the pools, all of them had increased workman's comp and increased liability issues that occurred, so they were offsetting the cost to everybody. With PRIA, you don't have that effect, because they're much larger, and again, we have a premium that won't change,
Okay.
you know, for some time. And again, services were about the same.
Want to say thank you, and also strongly encourage us to really explore some creative options with regards to our cemetery, regardless of what might need to do. And I think that was an excellent suggestion, being that it is in Martin County, being that they are utilizing it just like we are utilizing. Maybe we need to establish some type of agreement, municipalities, in sharing a cost, coming up with a package or something of sharing that cost, and even opening up some discussion with regards to the Henderson Fund that's sitting there. That's a lot of money sitting there, and we're not having access to it. Not to spend as we want to crazy, but in a crazy manner. But at least being able to upgrade, making it look more beautified, and just bringing it up to modern times rather. So I appreciate that, and I do believe that there are some questions that we do have that, as you would say, maybe some offline dialogue that we may need to have that shouldn't necessarily be tied in this budget meeting. Just a few questions, not in terms of a witch hunt, not trying to get anybody, but just to have some dialogue with your office. I do want to do this. And Mayor, it's raining outside, so it might have stopped. But just give me two more minutes. I do want to speak to our finance director in the email that you sent. I think it was addressed to all of us. And one of the things I've said, even to my colleagues, when we disagree, or when we have questions, comments, and or concerns, that I would hope that we can create such an environment in our city, be it in city commission meetings, or even in the city hall office, that we can create a dialogue that questions, concerns, or comments aren't equated with witch hunts, I got you moments, or trying to catch you with your pants down. And I can only speak for me. And I know the email wasn't addressed just to me, it was addressed to my colleagues as well. I sit where you sit in regards to, I'm an employee that has an employer. And one of the things that I don't like is to be micromanaged, or to have someone standing over me, looking over my shoulders. But I've also been a person that if a question is posed, I try not to take offense. I'm not saying that offense was taken on your end or not, but I'm just letting you know, because you don't know me. I've just stepped on the scenes since on the scenes in March, but I'm not that person. I try to be straightforward and direct. So if I felt like you were stealing, I'm just brave enough to ask that question and not dance around the mulberry bush. So, but I do know how it feels to have your professionalism called to question, And I know how it feels when someone is questioning whether or not you are operating in integrity. So I wanted to speak to that because I don't want anyone to feel like they're in a hostile working environment when it comes to me, because I don't want to be party to any libel or defamation of character. Because if such happens, I want my colleagues to know they're going to be like Patti LaBelle on their own, because I don't want to be party to that. But if I have questions, it's not me being tied up with the rumor mill, or I don't have a Facebook account purposely, because with some of the foolery on Facebook and racial exchanges going on that I've had text to me, I'm glad I'm not on that, because I'm foolish enough to follow it up with an intelligent response. But I just want to assure you that I'm not that person. But if I ask a question, it's because if I ask a legitimate question, it's because I want a legitimate answer. Not that I'm trying to catch you or see a ditch up the road and want you to fall in it. That's not me, because if you fail, we fail. If I fail, we all fail. And I think that's the type of dialogue and that's the type of thinking we need to have in this city. And I'm going to say this, man, just give me one more minute. I'm a Baptist preacher, so I'm going to say about 4 times. I'm getting ready to close. But I do want to say this. There's some great things that that is happening in Palm Beach County. I was reading an article on the internet where they're talking about doing a City Place West right there in Royal Palm. Royal Palm isn't too far from Pahokee. And it's incumbent upon us as political leaders, city hall, city administration, and citizens to really get our act together, because we could really posture ourselves to be a legitimate bedroom community, a community that people will want to be and live. And we just got to get our ducks in a row and work together as a team, and it's just like a marriage. You might fall out and sleep on the couch, but you better bring your butt to bed the next day. Amen. So, hey, we just need to, tighten up some things, but I did want to miss tonight without addressing that. That's not me, okay? And if my other colleagues want to speak to that, I just felt like I needed to speak to that, because one of the things I've noticed, questions sometimes are looked at as unwelcome and unwarranted, but it's just merely a dialogue, a sense of wanting to know. Because I'm not in that business of trying to set people up, because I believe in reciprocity. You reap what you sow.
Spoke for everybody.
Commissioner Walker.
I piggyback on everybody.
All right.
And my final comments, I would like to commend staff on the budget. It's by law we have to have a balanced budget. I know it took a lot of effort and a lot of work. We know budgets are projections, not so much is going to be to the penny of what we're going to spend or raise. But I just want to thank you publicly for that. We have to, in future consideration, figure out ways to increase our revenues. And one of the ways will be to provide housing, put people on the property tax rolls so we can receive those tax dollars from it. And the second one will be to increase our businesses. So we can get those two going and jump started. I think we will be able to pay for some of these raises we are trying to give employees, at least maintain them once we give them. And lastly, I'll just piggyback off what Commissioner Everett said. I did review that tape at least 2 or 3 times. I'm still maybe jet lagged. I didn't see certain comments, and really, I really wasn't sure where you was coming from. But since you're not a person we directly supervise, I didn't go to you and try to get any clarification from it. One thing I caused me a little concern was you made a statement that you never saw us read the audit report, and I don't even know where that came from, because I don't know when you would be able to see us actually read the audit report.
Because I don't have the book in office.
But we get a report, an annual audit report every year, and it's, go ahead.
The questions that you guys asked is in the audit.
Okay, so,
And it's like, you guys are asking these questions that have already been written. So
Okay.
why are you questioning something that's?
okay.
The
So
public
that's,
asked me to
that's why
speak
you
in the
made
mic.
that point. Okay, but we, okay,
Yes, that's why I made that comment.
yeah, but we do get a review of it, and we do get copies of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at our spare time, but I guess what you're saying, if you sat down and read it, but when you say that I hadn't saw it, none of y'all actually read it,
Come
that
by
kind of
and
threw me
pick
out.
up the actual audit books, because I still have all the audit books.
Yeah, we still got some in there that you can,
That no one ever
some of those
picked up.
questions could get answered, yeah.
The report you get though, and you have at your office, we don't have a copy of that?
No.
on an
I'm not
annual
sure,
basis?
I'm not sure.
I don't know if you got the last one.
Well, we should.
Yeah.
I think every audit
No, I-
report, all of us
No, that-
should have a copy. We shouldn't
Yeah.
have to come in the
Put
office
it
and
in
sit
the
down
mailbox.
and,
We
Yeah.
gotta come get it.
and read it, so.
We'll give you another one.
You gotta come literally and just ask me.
Right. But I get more so though, you know,
In
we,
closing, I think the majority of the question, if not all of them, was directed at the city manager. You wasn't here, so I don't know if somebody kind of threw a curve about the finance director, but I thought all the questions,
yeah,
he's the person that we're responsible for and supervise, so all our questions was really, I'm thinking was directed at him.
Right.
I may have to look at that tape again a third time, but I missed some stuff in
Right.
there that I
Thank
wasn't
you.
sure why the letter was so,
Yeah.
maybe forceful, to that point.
all
I
right.
agree with everything commissioners said.
All right,
Okay?
Mayor, thank you.
Okay, having all the business taken care of, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.